When it comes to wildlife, us gardeners know exactly how important they are to our growing spaces. And every year on the 3rd of March, we get to celebrate National Wildlife Day. Now, obviously, we don't have to just have one day to actually be looking after our wildlife. We are certainly going to be doing that all year round. And that's because not only are they important in their own right, but actually when it comes to us as gardeners, they are also really, really important in our growing spaces. So things like birds, they will be returning to our areas and possibly looking at nesting. So if you have any hedges or any big trees that you're thinking of pruning, after March you need to be really careful because they could be nesting in those areas, and actually you could also be facing some legal implications if you start to cut back hedges at that time of year. Now, we also need to be providing some food for these because they are going to be raising some young, and quite often people will remark about how much birds will actually be focusing on eating peanuts at this time of year. And actually, if we think about peanuts, they have lots of nutrition and protein in there, which is essential for them when they're raising their young. However, we still have some cold weather and we can still be facing frost here in the UK in zone 8 up until sort of mid-May time. So having things like fat balls around is really important, as well as making sure they have some water and access to safe water, particularly shallow areas. Now, your shallow areas are also really important when we're thinking about hedgehogs, and hedgehogs are really endangered and we need to be looking after them. So we can have things like hedgehog houses because they will be raising some of their hoglets at this time of year. And again, putting out food, making sure that those shallow water areas essential for hedgehogs, otherwise they could actually get into deeper water and they could drown. Now, hedgehogs are brilliant because they do like to eat slugs. However, too many slugs can be bad for them, so supplementing their diet is important. Historically, lots of people have put out things like bread and milk with all good intentions, but actually hedgehogs are lactose intolerant, so that's something you must avoid. They love mealworms. However, they're like sweets, the hedgehogs, and they will gorge on them, and like most sweets, if you don't have them in moderation, they are actually bad for you. And for hedgehogs, it's particularly bad because it can lead to a calcium deficiency, which will actually end up having brittle bones. Now, hedgehogs aren't the only things that we need to be looking out for. Moles, controversially, are also really important. Lots of gardeners don't like them, but actually if you have moles, it's because you have really good soil. Now, if you've got really good soil, you've got a lot of worms going on, and the moles will come to your growing space in order to get those worms. So don't be too angry, because actually having moles is a really good sign, and actually those worms are also equally as good for our birds. Now, again, at this time of year it's really tempting to be cutting everything back, but hold back a little bit, because if you do, you may come across some hibernating ladybirds, and we need to be protecting our ladybirds. If we cut it back and expose them, it could kill them off, and they are essential for dealing with our aphids in a really organic and natural way. And finally, and by no means least, we need to be thinking about our bees. Now, there's a whole variety of bees here in the UK. We have our lone bees, masonry bees, we have bees which hide underground, and obviously we have our hives as well. And within our hives, again, there's a whole variation. So again, maybe putting up things like bug hotels or bug boxes with little holes in so that they can actually hide out and hibernate. But we need to be prepared for when they come out of hibernation. So try to avoid cutting back any of those weeds such as dandelions, because those early bees coming out of hibernation will be looking for a very early food source, and the dandelions and any other early flowering pollinating flowers are absolutely essential. So lots of things to be looking out for to make sure that we are looking after wildlife, because actually, essentially as gardeners, wildlife will also then look after us.